In this lecture, we will discuss how to use resources in Visual Studio and Visual Basic.
Let's suppose you have your application and you want to add some special effects. Maybe you want to add some images, maybe you want to add some music to it, and you're wondering, can this even be done? Well, I have good news for you. Yes, this can be done. We can add these special effects in our applications and programs. So the question is, how do we go about doing that? How do we add music and how do we add pictures in our programs here? The way we do this is we include what are called resource files. So the idea with this is we'll make these music files and picture files resource files. And whenever we add a resource file to the project, it's directly integrated as part of the project. So it's not the case where we would import a file and then every time we use that file we have to go find it again. It's actually part of the project package. And what's nice about it is it makes using the resource a lot easier and a lot faster. So if we're using it multiple times, we can just directly access it in our project settings in Visual Studio. What's also nice about this is there's a lot less hassle whenever we're packaging our complete program and then trying to send out the program, because these resource files would actually be part of the entire package and not somewhere else on our computer. So what would be considered a resource? Well, it's going to be any non-executable data that can be deployed in the application. In other words, any file that's not executed. So let me give you a couple of examples of different types of resources that we could have. We can include strings, we could have images, so PNG, BMP, GIF, yes, GIF, not GIF, JPEG, and TIFF files would be examples of images, but any image file would be a resource. Icons would be resources, audio files, so like MP3, WMV, other formats, but audio music would be resources. Other types of files, so maybe documents would be a good example of that, and anything else like that. So as long as it's not something that is executed, it would be considered a resource. So the next question is, how do we go about adding a resource file? Now it's pretty simple. It's not that difficult, but you just gotta have to try it out to make sure you understand it. So the first thing you need to do is take a look at the Solution Explorer on the right side of Visual Studio. You'll see a big box that says Solution Explorer. It kind of has a list of everything that's part of your project. It's called a solution, which would have like your project and any forms that you've created. But you're going to click on the name of the project. Now, you got to be careful with what name you actually click on. You don't want to click on the very top thing that says solution. You want to click on the thing right below it that has the little VB box right next to it. You're going to want to click on that. And then you're going to want to click on the properties button. So where is the properties button? Well, if you go to the window below it, where we normally look for our properties whenever we're clicking on a form or a button or a label, you'll find a little wrench image. This little button, it looks like a wrench. In fact, if you put your mouse over it, it's going to say something like property pages or something along those lines. But you're going to want to click on that. And then a new window will appear. It's not a pop-up window, but I guess a tab is probably the best way to describe it. But another tab is going to appear on Visual Studio. And on the left side, you're going to see several options like application, compile, debug, and so forth. You're going to want to select the resources option. And that's going to give you a new screen. And what you want to do from there is at the very top of this screen, not like top, but you should see something like strings, add resource, remove resource, and so forth. You're going to go to the add resource button, and there's a little arrow to the right of it, and you're going to want to click on that, and then you're going to want to select add existing file. From there, a dialog box would appear just like if you were browsing files as normal, like you were opening a file. So you would search your computer for the file that you want to include as a resource, and then you would just add it. And there you go. Once we've added the resource to our project, we can just now use it in the application itself. So we can select it and add it if we want to. But if we're using code, the way we need to access this file is to use the my.resources object in order to use it. So this whole thing would be considered an object. So then you would have to include a dot and then the name of the resource file that you want to use. So for example, let's say we have an image file that's called img. So what we would do is just in our code say my.resources.img, and that will allow us to access that particular file, and then we can do whatever we want with it.